Satan is still the prince of this world. He's still the prince and the power of this world, because it hasn't been resolved yet, this whole issue. That's what we're going to go through with the end time. And so not all of the angels were impassioned. So they didn't all have sex, and it was only the impassioned ones and the worst of the demons that, my understanding is, that were sentenced to the abyss for those crimes of the violation against the laws of creation. So that means there's many other unimpassioned angels that are still out there, and you still have the dividing up of the earth that we have no scripture to say that it was redivided or canceled or anything like that. So one presumes then that either those were consolidated into smaller ones that weren't sentenced to the abyss, or they're just replaced with other angels. And we know there's a lot of angels that actually rebelled, because in Revelations we're told that there's 10,000 times 10,000, that's 100 million. And in Revelation 12, either a third rebelled all at once, or by the time of the end time, a third will rebel. So there's like 33 million of them, not just the 200 that Enoch talks about going to Mount Hermon. So, and there's a hierarchy to these angels as well. So yeah, I think they're governing the various regions, and will do so until the end time. And I think that's part of what helps bring the end time on once the restrainer is removed.
I think it's cool too, because it kind of gives some credence to this, where I believe it's Jesus says that, do you not know that you shall judge the angels?
Yes.
Which angels is he talking about? The angels that sinned and left their first estate, that they did with mankind. And that's what Jesus is talking about. You got a little info on that?
Yeah, and I actually will cover that off in a specific chapter in the book, and I call it Satan's Revenge. So my take on this whole thing is that there is a rebellion before the creation of humankind. And there's many theories as to when that would take place, but I place that certainly before the creation of humankind. And Adam is created to, in the future time, to have him and his descendants raised above angels, because angels rebelled. They had no free choice in terms of being created immortal, but they did obviously have a free choice to follow God or not, because many of them chose not to. But with the creation of humankind, and Adam in particular with his great commission, is that the fallen angels were jealous of this. They were wanting to make sure that this was not going to happen. So they were going to try and bring down Adam and humankind to prevent them from being raised higher than angels in the future time, and thus being able to judge these angels and their rebellion. So we're intricately and intimately connected to what happened in prehistory with the rebellion. And so what is playing out is the resolution to that. And because we have free choice before immortality, that's going to have a higher sort of presence given to it in the future time. And so in Eden, you have Satan taking possession or avataring or coaching the serpent to bring Adam and Eve down for his first revenge. Genesis 6 would be the second revenge. And all throughout history, he's trying to prevent humankind from achieving their destiny, and from Israel being created, and enabling Israel to bring about the Messiah, and that the Messiah will bring about the redemption of humankind. And I think what the angels miscalculated was they did not anticipate the resurrection. So when we hear about Jesus in 1 Peter going into the grave at the time of the resurrection, or time of the crucifixion, before the resurrection, just before, he's talking to these rebellious angels and saying, it's over. Your rebellion has officially failed. And when I rise on Sunday morning, means humankind will be raised in the future time, and they will judge you for the crimes that you've done against them.
Women are to pray and make that connection with their head covered, and men with their heads uncovered. What's the deal with the hair and the angels?
Well, it would seem that when the angels come into the physical world from the spiritual world and take on the form of body that they take on in the physical world, that they seemingly are subject to physical rules and regulations, or in this case, temptations. And so I think they find that the women are beautiful, and just as a human male would find women beautiful. And I think it's the same sort of things that are going on. And, they left their, as Jude 1:6 says, is they left their habitat. And habitat goes back to the word oikoterion in Greek. And that is defined as a dwelling place for the spirit. So I think they put on the clothes of the physical world to have a dwelling place for their spirit here, and then that becomes affected by the physical world.